My name is Sabrina. I am 34 years old, and I work as an employee in a large company in the city. Every morning, I wake up early, take the crowded bus to work, and spend my day at the office. My job is not glamorous, but it pays the bills, and I take pride in doing it well. I live alone in a small apartment, simple but clean. I have no family nearby, so my life mostly revolves around work. I don't complain much. I've always believed that hard work and patience can build a better future. My boss's name is Richard. He is 42, tall, and always wears perfect suits. People say he is a difficult man, serious and distant. But sometimes, he smiles at me, a small, knowing smile that makes my heart beat a little faster. I try not to think about it. He is my boss, and I don't want trouble. Still, something about the way he looks at me feels different, too personal, too close. I tell myself it's nothing, just imagination. But deep down, I feel a quiet tension growing inside me, like the first drop of rain before a storm. I don't know yet that my biggest mistake is about to begin. Richard was different from anyone I had ever worked with. He was confident, successful, and carried himself with quiet power. At first, I only saw him in meetings or passing through the office halls, but soon, he began to stop by my desk more often. He asked small questions about my projects, my weekend, even my favorite coffee. I told myself he was just being kind, but his eyes lingered too long, and his voice grew softer each time he spoke to me. One afternoon, he called me into his office. My heart raced as I walked in. He smiled and said, "Sabrina, you've been doing excellent work. You deserve something more." His words sounded simple, but there was a tone in his voice I couldn't quite understand. A few days later, he invited me to dinner to discuss my future. I didn't want to say no. He was my boss, after all, and I thought maybe this was about a raise or promotion. At the restaurant, the atmosphere was warm, almost romantic. He talked about life, about loneliness, and how hard it was to find someone who truly understood. I felt seen for the first time in a long time. I didn't realize then that his kindness came with a price, and that night was the beginning of my biggest mistake. After that dinner with Richard, everything started to change. He began to visit my desk every day, asking about my work, complimenting my clothes, and making me feel noticed in ways that were both exciting and confusing. One afternoon, he looked at me and said, "Sabrina, you deserve more than this small office life. Let me take you out again. We can talk about your salary." I agreed, thinking it was a professional meeting. But that night, it didn't feel like business. The restaurant was quiet, lit with soft lights, and Richard was charming. He told me I was beautiful. I should have said no when he held my hand, but I didn't. His attention felt warm, and for once, I felt special, wanted. Later, he invited me to his apartment just to talk. I went, and that night, I crossed a line I could never return from. We spent the night together. I told myself it was love, or at least the start of something real. But the next morning, at work, he acted as if nothing had happened. He spoke about reports and meetings, not a word about the night before. I waited for the promotion he promised, the raise he mentioned, but nothing changed. Days passed. Then weeks. He became distant. Cold. When I finally asked about the salary discussion, he said, "Be patient." Then he stopped coming by my desk. In meetings, he avoided my eyes. I felt invisible. One day, I saw him laughing with another woman from the office, a new employee. My stomach dropped. It was the same smile he once gave me. That was when I understood the truth. I was just another mistake in his long list of games. But worse, I had let it happen. I had believed in his promises. I had let my hope blind me. Soon, rumors began to spread in the office, whispers, glances, half-smiles. People were talking about me. About us. I tried to ignore it, but every look burned. When I finally gathered the courage to confront Richard, he said coldly, "Don't mix personal matters with work, Sabrina. Be professional." In that moment, I realized, I had lost not just his respect, but my own. After Richard rejected me in his office, I felt something inside me break. I walked back to my desk, my eyes burning, my hands shaking. Everyone around me pretended not to look, but I could feel their whispers following me like shadows. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his words in my head, "Be professional, Sabrina." How could he say that after everything? He was the one who crossed the line, yet I was the one who felt dirty and ashamed. Days turned into weeks, and the rumors only grew louder. Some colleagues stopped talking to me. Others looked at me with judgment. Every step into the office felt heavier than the last. One afternoon, I received a message from the HR department. They wanted to see me. My heart sank. When I walked into the HR office, Miss Harper, the manager, looked serious. She asked about my relationship with Richard. At first, I wanted to deny it. But I was tired of being silent. I told her everything, about the dinners, the promises, the night at his apartment. She listened quietly and said they would investigate. Richard found out soon after. He called me into his office one last time. His face was hard, his voice cold. "You'll regret this," he said. "You're just trying to ruin my name." I didn't answer. I walked away. I was done being afraid. 2 weeks later, I learned that the company had found proof, messages, phone calls, everything. Richard was fired. But his fall did not bring me peace. The gossip in the office became worse. People called me names. They said I seduced him for money or revenge. Every word hurt like a knife. One morning, I got a letter. It was from the company. They said they had to let me go, to protect the company's image. I lost my job, the one thing I had worked so hard for. When I left the building for the last time, no one said goodbye. I felt invisible, broken, and lost. That night, I cried until I could not breathe. I was angry at Richard, but more than that, I was angry at myself, for believing, for trusting, for hoping. I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, "You made a mistake, Sabrina. But you will not let this mistake define you." That night, I promised I would rise again, stronger, wiser, and free. A month passed after I lost my job. I spent many nights staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. I blamed myself for trusting the wrong man. I felt ashamed, small, and powerless. But one morning, something inside me changed. I looked around my tiny apartment and said to myself, Sabrina, you can start again. I began searching for new jobs, sending my resume everywhere I could. Most companies didn't call back. Some interviews ended with polite smiles that meant, no. Still, I didn't give up. Every rejection hurt, but I used that pain to push forward. I refused to let my mistake define the rest of my life. After several weeks, I finally got a call from a company downtown. They offered me a position as an assistant. The salary wasn't high, but it was enough. My new boss, Mr. Terry, was different. He respected everyone in the office. He spoke kindly and never made me feel small. For the first time in months, I felt safe. I worked hard every day, focusing only on my tasks. Slowly, I began to smile again. My confidence returned. I realized I didn't need anyone's promises to feel valuable. I could build my own life, one honest step at a time. Sometimes, I still remember Richard and that terrible chapter of my past. But now, I see it differently. It wasn't the end of my story. It was the lesson that helped me find my strength. I made a big mistake, but I turned it into my biggest lesson. I learned that pain is not always a punishment. Sometimes, it is the teacher that shows us who we really are. I once believed that love meant giving everything, my time, my heart, my pride, but now I know that real love does not ask you to lose yourself. I used to think strength meant staying silent, holding on, and pretending everything was fine. But strength, I realized, is walking away when you are not respected. It is choosing peace over fear, truth over lies, and self-worth over empty promises. People may betray you, disappoint you, or take advantage of your kindness. But they cannot destroy you unless you let them. Every heartbreak, every mistake, becomes a stone that builds your foundation for a better life. Now, I wake up each morning without fear. I go to work, make my own choices, and live by my own values. I am no longer the woman who waits for someone to save her, I am the woman who saved herself. Life is still simple, but it is mine. My biggest mistake did not break me, it built me. And that is what true strength means. If you enjoyed my story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional English stories that help you learn English through story and real-life lessons.